And we'll just do a quick mic check here.
They're all realized that I had the conflict with the housing.
All right. That says it's live and I'm seeing captions, so I believe we're ready to roll, Mr. Mayor.
Well, thank you, Mr. Manager. So we are 6 p.m. And I will call to order the Riverside City Council meeting for Thursday, April 20th, 2023. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Denning.
Here.
Mrs. Franklin.
Here.
Ms. Fry. Here. Mr. Joseph.
Yes.
Ms. Lomach.
Yes.
Mr. Maxfield.
Present.
Mayor Williams.
Here. No absent members. Mr. Manager, any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we do have one additional resolution, 23R 2841, to add as the last item for this evening before executive session. It's on the physical copies that you've been presented with.
Yes.
Approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion to approve from Mr. Joseph and a second from Mr. Maxfield. All those in favor of approving the amended agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Agenda is approved. I'd invite you all to now please join us to rise and pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We've all had a chance to review the City Council meeting minutes from April 6th, our last business meeting.
Second.
We have a motion from the deputy mayor and a second from Ms. Franklin to approve the minutes as published. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Minutes are approved. If there's any citizens joining us in the lobby this evening, I'm sorry, lobby or chambers. If you're in the lobby, come to the chambers. The meeting's in here. I don't think there's anybody in the lobby either, but if anyone's joining us this evening in person, we invite you to take advantage of the opportunity to speak to the city council, whether it's on an agenda or non-agenda item. We will accept citizens petitions for either one. The forms are in the back of our chambers and you can turn them into our clerk. We will move right over then to department updates and I'll turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll turn it over to Chief Robinson in the police department.
Thanks, sir. Start with a few things here. Officer Brookshire went to St. Helens this past week and gave a presentation to all the classes there that and the parent teacher conferences as well on internet, e-cig and DAB safety issues for tweens. You know, we've had some issues recently with that, so we wanted to get out there and get some safety issues or looked at as quick as possible. Officer Toscani went over to Maritime Daycare and did some safety training there, just some general safety, camera placement, locks, accepted like that. He's good at that stuff. This past Saturday, we did do a physical assessment for 2 officers. One passed, one failed. We do have one lateral person in the process, and we'll be doing interviews of those folks next Thursday. Unfortunately, our numbers are really low, but when I reached out to Huber Heights, and they only had 7 in their process right now themselves. So the pickings are slim, if you will. We do have a resolution tonight on the agenda in reference to Jermaine Ford. I just want to make sure that I reach out and say thank you to Jermaine Ford for offering to donate the pickup truck to be used by our SRO. And thank you to them. Those folks who got that, which also was Major Jackson and Officer Toscani that were spearheaded that to get that taken care of. Although we do have a drug box in our lobby year round, we are participating in the DEA drug take back, which is this Saturday from 10 to 2, and it is in the lobby of the police department. What that means is anything that's dropped off on Saturday, we will take that, transfer that to the DEA themselves. All the others that we collect, unfortunately, we can't really give that to them. We'd like to, but that's not what that's about. It's sort of, it says the 1-day take back, and then it's done in pounds. And so unfortunately, pills are very hard to get rid of. I know it sounds crazy, but you can't hardly burn them things. Your stomach can get rid of them, fire can't. And that's really weird. We are working on the flock cameras. We do have 2 of those installed. I know there was a little bit of issue with those. yesterday or today, and I think they worked that out. But we do have 2 cameras up currently, and there's 13 to go. So we're gonna cross our fingers everything goes well with those. Last thing I have to say today is Chief Stitzel, this is your last council meeting. And I hope the next chief has less to say so I can talk more. Actually, I just want to say this is a great guy. I hate that he's leaving, and we've had a good time together since he's been here. Appreciate you, man.
Any questions for Chief Robinson? Oh, Deputy Mayor?
I would like to know, there have been a number of concerns voiced about the speed on Spinning Road
Okay.
as it is alternate to Woodman. And if you sit there for 5 minutes, that's all it takes to see them come flying over that hill. And people don't realize that's neighborhood and people are trying to back out of their driveways. And I'm seriously concerned somebody's going to get hurt bad because we need to let people know that's not Woodman Drive. They're using it as a bypass. I understand,
Sure.
but the traffic is just, I don't know numbers, but I sat at Marblehead and Spinning Road and watched as the cars literally are flying over the hill coming south and north, and somebody's going to get hurt if we don't try to do something to get their attention.
City manager, I talked about that earlier. We already spoke about it and have a little bit of a plan in place. We do have that. The counter, it also keeps speeds, it keeps
Right.
track of those. So we don't put that out there and see if we can't find exactly when the time frame is best for us to be out there. We also still have the speed trailer we can put out. And I'll talk to them about more patrol on that area. But I want you to keep in mind that we only had 3 people working each shift. I know you hear
I
this all the
understand
time.
that. Yeah.
But there's 4 shifts, 3 people working on those every time. Every day, we average over 50 calls a day in that 24-hour period. I'm not making excuses. I'm just telling you, it is not easy to get those folks out there as easy as we like to. So what we're going to do is we do have that step grant. And so now that we've had a few things happen that in the city with, let's say odd bodies, that we don't have that kind of issue, that we can use that step grant to actually bring some people in and do some extra patrol on. It will be overtime, but it's going to be paid for.
Well, I just think it would be nice if we issued some tickets along there and get people's attention because
I don't
if
disagree
somebody's
with you.
going to get hurt.
I don't disagree with you at all. And we'll try to do that as best we can.
Because you understand with the grade, they come over that hill. And if they're not familiar with the neighborhood, they
Yeah.
don't realize where they are and people are trying to back out of their driveways and
I think we have a plan in place where we can at least A, start to collect the data on that, and B, leverage the grants that we do have to increase some awareness and
well, I
enforcement
just
where we
like
can.
the
So,
folks to know we're working on it.
yep.
Absolutely. We
In process.
definitely are.
Yeah.
Motion and council, right?
We definitely are.
Yeah, let's do some speed cameras. Get all the community out here and get their opinion about speed cameras. Kidding.
I would briefly add how appreciative I was and my wife was on Officer Brookshire coming out to a school and talking to the young people. We had the opportunity to have all 3 of our sons have a talk from him on a different topic. And it's great that the message is one that they need to hear. And maybe my 8th grader tunes out mom and dad quite a bit. But when it's Officer Brookshire, who did a wonderful job on the presentation and connecting with the kids, especially the young men in 6th grade and 8th grade, especially, it was they couldn't stop talking about it. They were so excited and they took it really, really seriously. So kudos to him. And it's not a skill that is easily possessed. But one of the reasons I was so excited about Officer Toscani becoming an SRO was because it was an ambassador for the city in our schools to the young people. And having opportunities like that with Officer Brookshire is just another way for people in our community to see how we're helping. Obviously, when there's emergencies, they're needed and they come through in that. But in an everyday circumstance, to tell these young people about things that they need to be aware of and be cognizant of, whether it's vaping or Snapchat, whatever it is, those are messages that are it's great for these kids to hear from other adults that they trust. And clearly he's earned that trust in a very short time. So congratulations to him on a great presentation all across the board at St. Helens. And I do thank the city manager and the chief for making that happen in response to some things happening in our world. So that was wonderful.
Are there
Thank you.
plans to try to do that in some of the other schools as well?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Absolutely. I want to say this, that the oddest thing he told me about the whole thing was one of the kids who was 10 years old, 11 maybe, came up and said someone was trying to get them to get pictures of their feet.
Mhm.
Now
Yeah,
you
they-
imagine how sick a person has to be. And this is the thing we want to make sure these kids understand. You need to stay away from those kind of things. This is what this
Mhm.
training is about. What Brookshire is very good. You're right about getting out there, and I put him and Toscani real close to each other as far as being out there with the students and. being able
Connecting
to
very
connect
well.
With them very well. He's very good at it. So we appreciate him.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and that I know that message will translate, and I know that other students in our community will heed it as well. So that was wonderful, and that was great to hear. Anything else for Chief Robinson? All right, we'll move right along.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I'll turn it over to Chief Stitzel for his last report out at
You should go
Riverside
after-
City Council
We should
meeting.
go after the executive session.
Such a nice night. He wants to stay inside.
I do. I am working very diligently on getting everything transitioned over to the other battalion chiefs. I don't want anything to fall through the cracks, and it's been one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. This is not easy for any stretch of the imagination. It is, I was not out looking. It's something that came to me. My dad taught me very early, when opportunity knocks, you have to at least listen. And they really spoke to me. It's something that my family and I struggled with for a little while, and we just decided that it's probably what's going to be best. So, yeah, I start in a week, and I'm going to miss all of you. It's been great working with all of you guys, and I really do appreciate everything that you've done, all your support for the fire department, the tax, everything that you guys have done for us and the crews. Obviously they are very supportive, and they really appreciate everything that council has done for us. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you've done. So, but just to continue with my update, the crews are completing their annual EMS protocol evaluations. If you remember last year, we're talking about engine 6 needing its pump rebuilt. The parts finally came in, so it's going to be out of service for a couple of months, starting next week at the Dayton garage for a pump rebuild. And luckily, we knew this was coming, so we prepared for it financially. We encumbered the money from last year to cover it. So we already had the quotes and everything, so we're ready for it. The new Medic 5, the chassis has been delivered to Horton. They're starting to build on it here in about 2 weeks, and they're saying it will be delivered sometime in early to mid-August. So once that's in, our Medic fleet will be much more resilient and stronger, capable. So we're looking forward to having that here. And you passed ordinances last couple meetings on another Medic and the generator. All that's been ordered. Everything's taken care of there. So I'm trying to get as many things as I can cleaned up. So there's not a lot to do. And the battalion chiefs are taking on all the different projects and things that I've been working on. I've been assigning them, like the computer IT stuff goes to Chief Hart, because he's probably the best suited for those kinds of things. So I'm just making sure everything gets divided up to the right person, make sure that everything that's in progress continues and we don't have any shortcomings in the department in the interim. And that's all I have for this evening.
Anything for the chief?
Well, we hate to see you leave, but truly appreciate everything you've done for the city. Congratulations on your new position, new role. I know it's probably a tough decision. But like I said, good luck in the future. And like I said,
Miss you.
yeah, we will miss you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking our fire department to the next level and giving us a vision of what it can be in the future, and doing what was necessary with all the grants that you got for us and the things that you helped us move forward with, and keeping us informed on what getting us the information we needed to make the right decisions to help you make it happen. And you're going to be sorely missed. But thank you.
Mhm.
It's been an honor and a privilege to serve all of you and this community. I'm going to try to stay close and visit and stop in when I can, but thank you very much for all your support. Thank you.
What's abundantly clear is that you care about what you do. You and your family, your entire family are dedicated and passionate about your line of work, the fire profession. And it's not every day that you have someone who you can tell from the bottom of their heart cares about what they're doing. And that's reflected in the year and a couple of months that I've gotten to work with you. It's abundantly clear that you have passion and you're dedicated to what you're doing. And I don't ever want to adjourn this meeting, so he can just stay. But Franklin is definitely getting a huge asset to their city. So good for them. And Chief, I really gonna be sad to see you go, but I know you're on to make another city and their fire department run as well as you've made ours. So congratulations. Thank you very much.
I'll just briefly add that when April and I came on 3 years ago, COVID hit right after we took office. And to think about what our public service, our public safety folks, Chief Stitzel, Chief Robinson, what you guys had to encounter, and the way that we did that and the way that we navigated through is nothing short of amazing to me. And I think it was, well, I know it was reflected in the way, it's also reflected in the way the community feels about the way that Chief Stitzel, you, and obviously you, Chief Robinson, have run our public safety services when we asked the voters to increase their taxes to support your services. And it was overwhelming. It was an endorsement of what you guys have done and continue to do. And it was, and I've been around long enough to know that that type of result comes from leadership. And in the case of the fire department, Chief Stitzel, comes from you. So I can't say thank you enough. That's a good ploy, Zach. We could just not adjourn ever. It's like a baseball game that keeps going to extra innings. But a filibuster, there we go. Lifetime filibuster. Some might say I'm already doing that, but however, Franklin's gain, they're getting a first class individual and a great firefighter and a better person. So thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Any other, how about questions for Chief Stitzel? Like,
Now's your last chance.
Last chance.
If you really want to hold his feet to the fire on something, speak now.
Feet to the fire. I like it.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I just put it out. How do you
Oh.
feel about your boss?
Yeah. How do you feel? Yeah. Tell us how you really feel.
Tell us how you feel about Josh. Leave it.
I'll just see myself out.
We'll have meeting minutes, don't worry. And video. Okay, well,
Thanks, sir.
we'll try to follow that with the public service update, I think.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll turn it over to Ms. Bartlett in public service.
Good evening. There's a lot going on in my department. We started the right-of-way acquisition process for one parcel on the Spinning Phase 2 project. It's right at the intersection of Burkhart and Spinning. We also did the final inspection of the US 35 widening that was finished up last fall. We had our part in that to make sure it was acceptable to us because it's now turned over to us to maintain. I attended the MVRPC Technical Advisory Committee meeting this morning. Contractors have been working on a punch list items on Lynn Haven and Meyer. And school zone flashing lights are now fully installed and activated on Valley Street. We hauled 86 truckloads of salt to Dayton for storage for the summer this week already. And we're running the street sweeper in parts of the northern half of the city. And so far, we haven't had any breakdowns. And we have our asphalt box back, which has been in the shop for repair. We have gotten a little behind on our pothole patching because patching with permapatch, the cold patch, is not economical and it doesn't last. So we have the box back to get hot asphalt, and we put over 8 tons of asphalt in the streets just this week. So we're going to continue with that and maybe even working a little overtime to get caught back up. And that's it.
Questions for Ms. Bartlett? It is a very busy time for those folks, as we all notice.
Parks look wonderful. They're doing a great job of keeping the parks.
All right. Well, thank you. And we appreciate the update and all the great work. It's, again, we know it's a very busy time, but we know there's great things right around the corner for us when that work is complete. And on to the city manager.
And I just have two things just to be brief. The first is I had the pleasure and the privilege of attending the DDC's annual fly-in to Washington earlier this week. I think it was a very productive trip. We certainly got acquainted with Senator Vance's staff. We're able to discuss the road projects that we'd like to do out here near the base. I've built some close relationships with colleagues regionally at the DDC and at neighboring cities as well. And so, fingers crossed, we'll keep our eye on the federal budget process and see what happens here over the next couple of months. But, I'm optimistic that at the very least, we're continuing to build those relationships and demonstrate that we're a player at the table when it comes to the region and particularly to the base as well. And the second thing is I just wanted to take some of my time just to acknowledge Dan as well, Chief Stitzel, in a very real way, probably more than he knows. He was instrumental. I think I started at a time here that was pivotal in a lot of ways. And the chief was a real asset. I mean, I really honestly, I've talked to a lot of fire chiefs all over the country. And I've not met one like Dan who was as forthcoming really had an outstretched hand and was like, we're all here to work together and help each other through. It's a team effort. And who really kind of went that extra mile, particularly for a new city manager who's just trying to make a go of things and trying to keep the place moving forward. And so thank you, Dan, really from the bottom of my heart. Honestly, it's been a privilege working with you. I will be terribly sad that you're going. I don't know when I'm going to go to lunch with Mr. Westendorf, if ever. I'm joking, of course. But no, honestly, you're going to do great things there. You've done great things for us already. I really, really appreciate it. There are big boots to fill. And so I certainly have some work cut out for me when we start our recruitment process going forward. But you've left, I think, a golden standard for what we need to look for in terms of a fire chief and in terms of the skill set that will continue the good work that you've started here. So thank you. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Any questions for the city manager? All right. We will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is public comment on agenda items. I do not believe we've had any requests to speak turned in to the clerk.
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to verify that. We will then move into old business. We have a few ordinances that we will have the second reading, public hearing, and potential adoption for. The first one is ordinance 23-0-824.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from Ms. Franklin. Madam Clerk, would you please read this ordinance by title only?
Ordinance 230824, an ordinance approving the plan of operation and governance for the Sustainable Ohio Public Energy Council Electric Aggregation Program for the purpose of jointly establishing and implementing an electric aggregation program.
Okay, well, I will now open the public hearing for ordinance 23-0-824 at 6:24 p.m. For anyone who wishes to comment, please state your name and address for the record at the podium. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Hearing no one and seeing no one come forward, we will close the public hearing at 6:25 p.m. Is there any further discussion from members of council? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Denning,
Yes.
Mrs. Franklin,
Yes.
Ms. Fry,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph,
Yes.
Ms. Lomach, Mr. Maxfield,
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes. Motion carries. We'll move on to the second ordinance, ordinance 23-0-825. Do we have a motion? We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from Mr. Joseph. Madam Clerk, would you please read this ordinance by title only?
Ordinance 23-0-825, an ordinance approving the plan of operation and governance for the Sustainable Ohio Public Energy Council Natural Gas Aggregation Program for the purpose of jointly establishing and implementing a natural gas aggregation program.
I will now open the public hearing for ordinance 23-0-825 at 6:26 PM. Anyone who wishes to comment on this ordinance, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. And please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing no one come forward and hearing no one, we will close the public hearing at 6:26 PM. Is there any further discussions from members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Denny,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph,
Yes.
Mrs. Franklin,
Yes.
Ms. Fry,
Yes.
Ms. Lomach, Mr. Maxfield,
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes. Motion carries. We will now move into new business, of which we have 3 ordinances and 4 resolutions before us. The first resolution, ordinance 23-0-826. Mr. Manager, if you could just give us a very brief synopsis of what we're about to consider.
Sure. As briefed, I believe at the last work session, this ordinance was recommended by the Planning Commission and contains some patchwork hole filling with respect to the UDO, minor text adjustments that will help us continue to move forward in that regard.
We have a motion from the deputy mayor and a second from Mr. Denning. The city charter allows for the first reading of an ordinance to be read by title only unless a council member requests otherwise. Madam Clerk, would you please read this ordinance by title only?
Ordinance 23-0-826, an ordinance amending chapter 1109 zoning development standards of the Unified Development Ordinances of the city of Riverside, Ohio.
Is there any further discussion from members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Lomach? Yes. Mr. Denny,
Yes.
Mrs. Franklin,
Yes.
Ms. Fry,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph,
Yes.
Mr. Maxfield,
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes. Moving on to the second ordinance. This one we are being asked to consider a first reading, second reading, and potential adoption this evening for ordinance 23-0-827. Mr. Manager, could you tell us a little bit about this one?
Yep, and as discussed again last week at the work session, this ordinance would repeal the current table of organization as an exhibit in our ordinances. And the principal reason for asking on an emergency basis today is that I intend to hire a human resources manager position. That's a pretty critical need for our organization, and in the interest of getting to do that as quickly as possible, I can't do that until the TO is either repealed or amended. So if you proceed with the emergency reading this evening, I'm in a position to post that Monday next week.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. The city charter allows for the first reading of ordinance to be read by title only unless a council member requests otherwise. Madam Clerk, would you please read this ordinance by title only?
Ordinance 23-0-827, an ordinance to repeal ordinance number 23-0-819, passed February 16th, 2023, and declaring an emergency.
Is there any discussion from members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Denning,
Yes.
Mrs. Franklin,
Yes.
Ms. Fry,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph,
Yes.
Ms. Lomach, Mr. Maxfield,
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes. Council has been requested to approve both the first and second readings and consider final adoption of this ordinance. If that be our will at this time, I will entertain a motion to suspend the rules that dictate the number of days between the first and second readings.
So moved.
I have a motion from Ms. Franklin and a second from Mr. Denning. Is there any further discussion from members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Franklin,
Yes.
Mr. Denning,
Yes.
Ms. Fry,
Yes,
is that right?
I lost track of which
Oh.
ordinance we were on.
Oh, it's just the second read of the same one.
Okay. Thank you.
Number is 30 seconds.
Yes.
Mr. Joseph,
Yes.
Ms. Lomach, Mr. Maxfield,
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes,
Just to follow, we passed the first reading. We just suspended the
We did-
rules.
This
Now
is
we
the
have to
suspension. Now you have. to
Second.
do the
vote it on and again,
second reading and hold a public hearing.
and then do the mockery.
At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the second reading and potential final adoption of this ordinance.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Maxfield and a second from Mr. Joseph. Madam Clerk, would you please read this ordinance by title only?
Ordinance 230827, an ordinance to repeal ordinance number 230819, passed February 16, 2023, and declaring an emergency.
I will now open the public hearing for anyone who wishes to speak on ordinance 23-0-827 at 6:30 PM. If you wish to speak, please state your name and address for the record at the podium, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Hearing no one and seeing no one come forward, I will close the public hearing at 6:31 PM. Is there any further discussion from members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Maxfield,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph,
Yes.
Mr. Denning,
Yes.
Mrs. Franklin,
Yes.
Ms. Fry,
Yes.
Ms. Lomax, Mayor Win.
Yes. Motion carries. All right, on to the third ordinance, which is only the first reading. Ordinance 23-0-828. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Joseph and a second from Ms. Franklin. Madam Clerk, would you please read this ordinance by title only?
Ordinance 230828, an ordinance amending the annual salary for the mayor and council members of the city of Riverside, Ohio.
Is there any further discussion from members of council?
I would just like to, I know that there are, in previous discussions, there are probably enough yes votes to pass this. And I intend to vote no, but I want to make it clear that I do believe that the salary, that the basis of the legislation, I agree that it's a fair salary. The homework has been done, but I do believe that the timing matters. And I personally am very aware that we don't have a road levy to pay for our residential roads. And from my perspective, that anything that we do that might undercut the faith of the citizens in us. And that's where I believe the timing of this being so early in the salary adjustments, that this is the first salary adjustment that we make. I just believe that the timing could be better.
Any other members of council wishing to comment before we call the roll? Okay, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Joseph,
No.
Mrs. Franklin,
Yes.
Mr. Denning, Ms. Fry,
No.
Ms. Lomax,
No.
Mr. Maxfield,
Pass.
Mayor Williams.
Yes.
No.
Mr. Maxfield.
Yes.
We have 4 resolutions in front of us. Resolution 23-R-2838. Mr. Manager, could you give us a brief rundown of this?
Yes, just a housekeeping resolution declaring some surplus equipment items that we will be able to then post to Gov Deals or otherwise dispose of.
All right, do we have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion from the Deputy Mayor and a second from Ms. Franklin. All those in favor of resolution 23-R-2838 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. The next resolution, Mr. Manager.
This is the customary consent legislation we need in order to enter into agreements with ODOT. So this would be for the Spinning Road Phase 2 rehabilitation project.
Second.
We have a motion from the Deputy Mayor and a second from Mr. Joseph. All those in favor of resolution 23-R-2839 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Resolution 23-R-2840.
This
Mr. Manager?
resolution is the final piece that we would need in order to become actually join SOPEC. So the ordinances were to establish the aggregation program. this resolution allows us to become members of SOPEC as an organization.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from Ms. Franklin. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. And the final resolution of the evening?
The final resolution, this is the late addition. Jermaine Ford is interested in donating a vehicle to the police department for the SRO's use. And so this would allow me to sign that agreement.
Second.
We have a motion for Mr. Joseph and a second for Ms. Franklin. All those in favor of resolution 23-R.
Discussion?
Oh, I apologize. I apologize. Is there any further discussion among members of council? Thank you, Ms. Fry.
So I would just want to thank the city manager and the support of the law clerk and our legal representation for reviewing this memorandum and vetting it. I would not be comfortable in just a large donation like this directly to the police department without the parameters of it being to fund the SRO and having very specific direction. I think that gives us a lot of it gives us good parameters to work within and allows us to accept it graciously.
Well said. And I'm sure we all share that sentiment. That's very well pointed out. Any further comments before we?
I have a question. I just wondered, is it gonna be identified as a police vehicle or will it remain Ford vehicle?
So both, and I'll defer to the chief on the specifics of the lettering. My understanding is that, yes, it will show that it is a cruiser that at some point will have Jermaine Ford on it.
And I'm good with that. I just wanted to be sure that it's identified as a police vehicle.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. It will be different than other vehicles because SRO is different. They have the
Gotcha.
vehicles are very unique, if you will. But it will still have the Riverside Blue and Riverside Police Department on the side of it. All those things will still be the same. Now, the vehicle might be, trust me, Toscani comes and sees me almost daily and goes, "Hey, look at this one," you know, with the wrap he wants put on there. And from what I understand, the donated by Jermaine Ford is only going to be like yay big on the bottom
okay.
of the
That's
the
okay.
door.
I just wanted to be, I'm expected that would happen. But I just want to be sure it's identified to the public that it's a police vehicle.
100%. It will be the beautiful blue Riverside police car on the side of it, like we've always had. Now, the vehicle might be camouflaged in some color, but who knows what the skies are going to end
That's
up with.
okay.
It's going to look good.
Is this something that we can offer to Officer Descani as like a fringe to take home?
Seriously?
I don't know about that. Yeah.
That didn't mean that.
I mean,
It's not our vehicle. I wouldn't want to preempt any conversation
Said that.
about vehicles at this point in time, although I can say in this specific circumstance, it's probably unlikely because it's not our car.
it's not.
But
ours.
correct. Now,
let-
have the other thing though, too, that I did want to build on just really briefly though, is with respect to Ms. Fry's comments, I know that Dalma and her staff looked at the agreement and did a lot of legwork there too, but I did want to acknowledge Chief and Officer Toscani and the others who have been in close collaboration with the dealership as far as the contours of this program and bringing this all to fruition. The major benefit for us is that it's one less vehicle that we have to lease, and it allows us to take our current fleet and repurpose that for other uses too. So thank
Absolutely. I
you.
think it's a great
to
idea
them.
and I'm not opposed to Jermaine having their name on there. I just wanted to be sure that it's well identified as a police vehicle, because that's a
Yeah.
statement to the public.
If they'd like to donate more police
Yes.
vehicles. to put their name on it,
We have asked them that.
you know.
No answer yet.
I know we're being funny right now, but I would not be comfortable with, the impression of our police department being
Being
funded.
sponsored
Yes.
Right.
And I think that's
and beholden to somebody else potentially.
exactly. And
Right.
I think that we've done a good job of, minimizing that risk.
Right. And that was one of the things that we wanted to have vetted legally
Mhm.
as well, it's the optics there. It's one thing to do an SRO. It's something else to do patrol, for example. So I think we've struck the right tone.
All right. Call the question. All those in favor of resolution 23-R-2841 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. We are, Madam Clerk, I'm verifying that there have been no slips turned in for public comment on non-agenda items.
Correct.
Okay, trust but verify. We will move into council member comments. And for those of you joining us in the chambers or watching on streaming, we are going to have an executive session for the reasons stated on the agenda, but we will have council member comments first. I will start with Mr. Denning. On to Ms. Fry.
Okay, I've got a few. So, we have a blood drive on Monday, and I would really, I'm making a plea to the community. We are a little low on, registered donors. April is a tough time because, a lot of people don't donate because they're on vacation, when they're on spring break vacation. So, we have 4 more spots to hit our goal, but it would be really nice to go above and beyond and replenish our blood supply. So if you can make it to our blood drive on Monday, it's from 3 to 7. There are appointments open all day long. Just go to donortime.com and search for the city of Riverside. Would really appreciate a strong community support for this. Secondly, April is Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month, Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month, and it's also Autism Acceptance Month. And I find it really serendipitous that they all land in the same month, because they all really point to violence in our community, violence against children, violence in relationships, thank you, or just violations of the person, and in with respect to autism, a lot of the acceptance points to the kind of aggression that's directed toward those people who are different, and I think that it's really important to think about, and I don't think people do often enough, that when we think about child abuse or sexual assault or autism, bullying, we think of really extreme cases. But I would encourage people to really think about how violence begins in the home with the really little things. And the evidence really points to the violent actors in our community. They didn't start out in the community. It started in the home. And so my request is that we all take a moment to think about the very small ways that maybe we inherited some ways of dealing with our children, or ways of dealing with the opposite gender or people in relationships, and really looking for the ways that we can remove the violence from our everyday actions and just move the needle a little bit. Because when people experience violence out in the community, if they have in their families that they grew up being talked to in very aggressive and violent ways, they're less likely going to intervene in that situation. And the more we can make people less tolerant of that violence, the more we can actually move the needle on these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda.
Amen. I would like to say about the blood drive, for the first time in the over 20 years I've donated blood, I have never heard back from the blood center. And I got an email the next week thanking me and where my blood went. It went to Kettering Medical Center for a female, whatever. I think that's wonderful, because I've often wonder if mine got put in the trash can. So it's nice to know that they've reached out with the PR of following up after you've donated. And that's the first time that's ever happened for me. So I think and I encourage everybody, if you can and are physically able, to haul up in that trailer and it doesn't take long, 30 minutes at the max. So, but thank you.
Yeah, I find their follow-up to be very thorough. They'll find you.
Yeah.
They'll make sure you know the next time they're around our neck of the woods. I don't believe we're going to be together again between now and May 2nd. So I would encourage everyone who is able to vote to take advantage of that. The school levy, issue 12, is on the ballot. Early voting is open now. You can go down to the Board of Elections at the county building. There are a number of hours during the week that they're open. They're also open the weekend prior to. The number of polling stations that we have in the city are pretty robust, and you can go to the Board of Elections website to figure out where you specifically vote. But this is an effort that a number of us up here have been personally involved in, and I can't thank the people in the community enough who invited me to work with this effort, even as a Catholic school guy, but one who realizes the importance of strong schools in our community. And Mad River Local is the largest district in our community by far. It's the largest employer in our community. It plays such a pivotal role. And as my wife and I were talking about the levy and really thinking about it from a different perspective, we realize my wife's a graduate of public high school. I benefited from Sinclair, both my wife's high school and where I was able to go to community college. They're supported by property tax levies in Montgomery County. So we all benefit. And we had this talk kind of around the dais when Sinclair was on the ballot in November, that so many of us were touched by Sinclair, and everybody's here touched by Mad River Local Schools, if we have a child in the school or not. And it's something that I think that as a community that is getting a lot of things done with roadway improvements, with new businesses, new Kroger, et cetera, it would be a real shame to not continue that momentum with issue 12. So I really it's been more than 10 years. The last levy that the schools, Mad River schools passed was in 2011. It was supposed to last for about 5 years. They were able to, through good financial stewardship and leadership, stretch that further. And now they're at a position where it's time to ask the community for support. Mad River Local spends less per pupil than the state average, and they pay, and their average salary, they're spending less on staff than the state average. So it's easy to look at a big public system and think, oh, there's got to be a lot of bloat there. There's got to be a lot of extra, too much money spent, et cetera, et cetera. That might be the case somewhere. It's just not here. And again, I would encourage everybody to vote on May 2nd. And if you don't have a plan, make a plan. I'm going to vote early. My wife and I do that frequently because you never know what will happen the day of. If you're able to do that, vote early. If not, polling stations open early, and they open at 7 a.m. They're open until 7 p.m. But, so often in our community, we'll hear, whether we are looking for opinions or not, we'll hear people's opinions. And the first thing I say to most people is, did you vote? Did you vote for your council members? Did you vote for your governor? Did you vote for the schools? And sometimes I get a weird look like, well, what do you mean? What I mean is you get the government you deserve. Most communities will get the schools we deserve. If we go out and make this happen, we'll get the school district we deserve. And I want people to take that seriously. So I encourage folks to make a plan to vote May 2nd, and really consider what our schools mean to this community. Secondly, I also, we might've talked about it a bit, but April is also the month of the military child. And we were very happy earlier this month when Beverly Gardens had a very special visitor celebrating military children, the First Lady. And then we at St. Helens found out last week that St. Helens is the newest Purple Star school in the state of Ohio. So that means here in Riverside now, every one of the Mad River Local schools, every grade school, middle school, and high school is Purple Star status. St. Helens has joined those ranks, and Carroll High School is in those ranks. So I would say that this community supports military families through their schools better than any community in Ohio. And I don't think that's even really a statement that could be challenged. And it's a real credit. It's no contest. And it's a real credit to how much this community values those families, as the deputy mayor has said a number of times. It's not just the person in uniform who serves, it's the family that serves, it's the spouse that serves, the kid that goes from school to school to school. How many schools did Ralph have?
Clint had 11
Clint, 11.
by the ninth grade.
And I'm so glad that we're now in a state and a city where those families and those children's needs are being considered. And it's not just putting a banner up on your building that says Purple Star, yay for us. It's having programming, it's having counselors, it's having people needs met academically, socially. And it's a wonderful thing. And it's something that having been with the city manager in DC a few days ago, it's something that sets Ohio apart from many other parts of the country is how we support military families. And it's not something that goes unnoticed, that we found out. So congratulations to the schools that have recently become Purple Star status. And thank you to Mad River Local for leading the way on that. And vote on May 2nd. Mr. Joseph. You're not going to tell him to vote? You echo.
It is 9 minutes till 7, Pete. You
On to Miss Franklin. She always says a lot.
You took up
I
enough
have
of the
nothing.
clean air.
I
here.
have nothing.
Echo what Pete says and that's it.
Thank you. We will.
Bye, chief.
I'd like to, like to make a motion to bring ordinance 230828 back for reconsideration.
I don't know. Can we do that?
Yes, you can,
Do 838.
Okay.
as long as the motion is made from a person on the prevailing side.
Okay. Is there a second? Does the second have to come from someone on the prevailing side either?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from Ms. Franklin to reconsider ordinance 230-828. Madam Clerk, would you please read this ordinance by title only?
Now, you have-
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Thank you, Zach. So we have a motion to reconsider.
And I'll make a motion to bring it back.
No.
No, you have to
gotta
vote to
on that.
Oh,
Is it-
okay, I'm
is
sorry,
it a,
sorry, sorry.
Roll call vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If you want to do.
I'll request the ayes and nays.
Okay, yeah, we'll do roll call. So Madam Clerk, so we have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from Ms. Franklin. We'd like to have a roll call vote. Please.
Mr. Denning,
Yes.
Mrs. Franklin.
Yes.
Ms. Fry,
No.
Mr. Joseph,
No.
Ms. Lomach,
No.
Mr. Maxfield,
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes.
Move to approve ordinance 230828.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from Ms. Franklin to approve the first reading. Do we need to do the ordinance by title only still?
Yeah.
Please read the ordinance by title only, Ms. Madam Clerk. Ms. Franklin, you're good.
Ordinance 230828, an ordinance amending the annual salary for the mayor and council members of the city of Riverside, Ohio.
Is there any further discussion from members of council before we call the roll? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Denning,
Yes.
Mrs. Franklin.
Yes.
Ms. Fry,
No.
Mr. Joseph,
No.
Ms. Lomach. No. Mr. Maxfield,
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes. Are we ready to go into executive?
Move to go into executive session for the reasons on the agenda.
So second.
We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from Ms. Franklin to move into executive session for the reason listed on the agenda. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Denning,
Yes.
Mrs. Franklin,
Yes.
Ms. Fry,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph,
Yes.
Ms. Lomach.
Yes.
Mr. Maxfield,
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes, we are in executive